So this is a project that I put together for University of Maryland's ENME 351 course, in which we had to use an Arduino to control some kind of mechanical component, as well as interface it with a program called processing, which is kind of like a visual art program, which we'll talk about in a minute here. But essentially what the project is a game in which the user controls a rocket ship via the gyroscope mounted on the back of the glove that you see there, to shoot alien ships. So we'll get into the code in a little bit here, but this image is showing kind of the components here. So you've got two servos controlling the ship, which is run by, both of them are run by 4 AA batteries, which is separate than the Arduino's power. And you've also got the gyroscope on the back of the glove, as well as an LED on the front of the ship, which simulates the ship firing a bullet. And you've also got a button input, which is responsible for determining when the bullet comes out. Here we can see a little bit of gameplay, as well as how the mechanical component of the project moves, especially in relation to the glove there, which you can see all 3 of the movements are the same. And here's some of the gameplay up close. You can see the movement of the rocket ship in the game is dependent on the user's hand, and you can see that when they press the button as well, that's when the bullet is fired. And when the bullet comes in contact with the alien ship, it explodes. And this is an up-close view of the actuation of the mechanical arm that the rocket sits on. You can see that the strings that are pulled by the servos move the arm left and right here. The screws are for tensioning the ropes in case of stretching or any misalignments.
All right, here we have the code that I've uploaded to the Arduino. And before we get too far into it, I just want to give a shout out to howtomechatronics.com with Dejan, which they wrote an article about how to interface the gyroscope with the Arduino. So a lot of this mumbo jumbo that you see here is directly from them. So thanks to them for that. But we have a lot of the wire library included here, and we also have the servo library, which basically I have down here mapped out the position of the gyroscope to each of the servos, which is what you see here. These 4 if loops are they basically set the maximum and the minimum of the servo. So the servos are going to range from 50 to 130 degrees. And then we have actually printing out the value of the position of the servo, of each of the servos, to the serial monitor here, which is what you have. And then this last if statement here is for the button. When it's pressed, it sends a digital 1 across the serial monitor. All right, so here's the processing part of my project here. Some sources here for my images. That's where I got those from. We had some initialization of some variables here. We have our setup here, which is loading a lot of those images, as well as the font that you see up here. Then we get into the draw function, setting up the processing code to read the Arduino, the stream of data coming in from the Arduino. Then we have our first big chunk of code here that's important is these 2 if loops, which basically work to serve the function of reading the state of the button, right? So when that button is pressed, we can see on the right there, it launched the projectile, and it sets the initial X and Y coordinate as from the bullet, the same as the ship. So that's what those 2 if loops do. And then we have this next if loop here, which basically serves, it reads the X and Y coordinate of the bullet. And if the X and Y coordinate of the bullet is within a certain range of the ship, then it plots the explosion, and then it resets the Y coordinate of the ship to be the top of the screen. And it also resets the X coordinate so that it's a random position within the screen here. And then we have our last if statement, which is pretty simple. It's just if the spaceship reaches the bottom of the window here, then it resets. It resets the score to 0, as well as resets the ship to the top of the screen.